Oh, I'm
half. I'm not there any longer. But.
It's hard to read this.
Oh.
That's a good one.
I didn't know you were a Seahawks fan, right?
I hope I get to see him this fall.
Oh my God, my sons are Seahawks fans too, and they feel weird because everybody around them are 49ers. So.
Yeah. It's hard to be a Seahawks fan in San Francisco.
Yes, true.
Seahawks is a religion here.
Right? No, it is. It's truly.
It is indeed.
It's 12:01, so my suggestion is that we go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. As I said when I first came on, appreciate you guys taking time out in a very crazy time, but it's also a very exciting time in the world of taxation. I'm teaching, so a quick background on myself. I'm an alumni. Back in the early 90s, I was a student here. I worked at KPMG and Deloitte for a combination of 20 years. And I like to say I retired and have become a full-time faculty here for the last 6 or 7 years. So I know what it's like to be a student here. I know what it's like to be a faculty member here. I have taught in our asynchronous online format. I've taught in our web conferencing format, live instruction over Zoom like today. And I have taught in our physical classroom. So I'll be able to give you all of those perspectives. And let me turn it over to Cindy and let her.
Muting there. Welcome, everybody. I'm Cindy Goldberg. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions Counseling for the tax program. And I'm looking at the names, and I think I've spoken to just about all of you. And I'm so glad that you could attend. As I mentioned, we're going to cover some of the different formats that we're offering classes in. And I think you'll get a real good sense of the program and you know, the student interface depending on which format you decide to pursue. Just by way of background, I'm a practicing attorney, but I've worked in academia for the last 8 years with graduate tax students.
Rocco?
Well, my name is Rocco Lamanna, and I'm the Associate Dean, and I'm the tag along in this tour group. And so I'm really excited to be a part of these conversations. Every time we're on these webinars, we definitely learn something new. And I think it's awesome that we have 2 Seattleites representing. So power to the Seattleites.
Right on.
I'm going to ask for a little housekeeping, though, that if you just go ahead and mute yourself while we go through this presentation, this will help so that there's no background interference that comes over. Eric is going to cover a lot of material. We'll have time at the very end for Q&A. So if you think about something, jot it down, and then we might even answer it while we're going through it. But if we don't, then we'll come back and we're going to save about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A.
All right, so let's get into it. What's neat is you guys are experiencing a lot of what it's like to take a web conference class because it's under the same platform there are in Zoom. And one of the tools that are at my disposal when I teach a class is I can, of course, share my screen. And I will share my screen now and go to the slide deck that I have. I want to be clear on something that this slide deck will be made available to you. So do not feel like you have to copy frantically the stuff that's on the slide deck. You'll have access to everything that I am showing you. So anytime I give a presentation, I always want to put myself in the shoes of the audience of what would I want to know if I was listening to me speak. And the number one thing I want to know is why Golden Gate? I mean, there are a lot of other places you can go and potentially get a master's in tax. What differentiates Golden Gate University? I listed 6 things here that I think are some of the biggest reasons why I went to Golden Gate and why I know other students have gone to Golden Gate. and it spells out an acronym, which I'll comment about as well. First of all, the classroom experience. No shade on my alma mater, UC Berkeley, Cal Berkeley. But when I was an undergrad, I sat in an auditorium with like 300 people for my Econ 1 class. So it is extremely rare to have a class size of greater than 25. So what that means is that you get to know not only your instructor really well, who has a wealth of tax experience, but also your fellow students who will have a range to very little practical real world experience to someone that maybe have been with the IRS for a long time or been working in public accounting or maybe even their own practice. And it really encompasses a very rich discussion I've found in the classroom, whether it's the physical classroom or the web conference or online. Applicability of the material of the real world. This is so huge to me of why I love our program. What we use, I have it here. I don't go too far without my Internal Revenue Code, even when I'm pretending that I'm on the beach. The Internal Revenue Code is our textbook for at least all of our required classes. So we teach out of the code, and that's what you'd be using in the real world. The other thing I think is important is our relationship with the accounting firms, whether they be because they recruit our students or whether because they're their instructors, or that they give different presentations. Just we're going to talk about Rocco and I'm going to talk about later through our lunch and learns, our speaker series. We have a strong relationship with the accounting firms. The first E is the experienced industry leading faculty. I always feel awkward talking about this because I'm one of the faculty. I will just say that I've been an adjunct or a full-time professor for 20 years, and I have been working in the in either BDO, Deloitte, or KPMG for 20 years. And I believe I have the least experience of all the full-time tax professors. I like to say that's because I'm younger, but they don't appreciate when I say that. All right, so I'm going to talk about in a moment the issues of extensive graduate of our tax offerings, meaning what does it mean? What is the actual technical knowledge you learn when you get a master's of tax? And I hope I can prove to you the value of that relative to someone that might just have an undergrad degree and took one tax class. And then finally, our ranking. Anytime anyone says they're highly ranked, I don't care if it's a school, a restaurant, anything, I have two questions for those people. One is, who's doing the ranking? And two, what criteria was used in order to determine that ranking? So you can do your own research. The ranking I personally am most proud of is taxtalent.com. We have always been ranked highly there. We've been #1 or dropped to 2 or 3 over the last 10 years. But they're an independent organization who interviews tax recruiters all across the nation. And in their interviewing, they ask the recruiters to questions relation to what Masters of Tax programs that they recruit for, that they hold in high regard. Again, for all the details, you can go ahead at taxtalent.com and you can hear more about their system and their ranking. It all spells out the word career, because to me, that's why I came here. I came here because it helped me jumpstart my career in taxation. And I hope to show that not only in the technical classes you learn, but in the relationships, the mentoring, and the networking that you will do here, to all our external activities that go beyond the classroom, which are included in your tuition as a Golden Gate student. Okay, what are in general the benefits of getting an MST degree? I already gave it away. It's all about your career. Whether you're looking at a public accounting or your own business, or whether you're working in a private industry, meaning working at a company, a corporation in their tax department, or the government, or even a nonprofit, that a lot of doors get opened up because you have that experience and have a master's in tax degree. Where are our students? You know, they get hired. Some are already have a job when they come in and some don't. And those that don't get hired, you might say where. That's what this slide says. This is where our alumni are. The bigger the bubble, unfortunately, this reminds me of some of the things I've seen from the coronavirus maps over the years. But like that, the bigger the circle, the more alumni that we have here. And not surprising, the big four public accounting firms, Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, and EY are well represented. You see the mid-tier, some mid-tier firms like Moss Adams. You see the Internal Revenue Service and a lot of corporate entities like Uber and Oracle. So one of the benefits, like I said, is you're able to develop that professional network. Some with your instructors, because your instructors aren't just academics. These are former partners, our former senior managers at our tax directors at a public accounting firm or large corporations. And I have people during the fall, which is kind of our heavy recruiting season. I have as many people coming to me, talking to me about career opportunities and help for their resumes or interviewing, as I do people asking me about the technical classwork. And I think that's valuable to have that professional network with your instructors, but also with your classmates. When I was a student here at Golden Gate University, again, because the class size were smaller, I really got to know a number of my classmates. And then to the extent they became friends, we actually organized when we would take classes so we can continue to take classes, to future classes together. And there are a couple to this date, 20 years later, who I am still friends with. So I talked about in that career what it's like the technical side. When you have your master's in tax degree, what are you taking away technically from our program? And think of our class as our master's in tax being 10 classes. I'm sorry, let me step back for a minute. Kind of the gold standard here is an MS taxation degree. That's 30 units. We do have shorter programs, which are called certificates, which a certificate in taxation, which is a modified version of the full MS taxation degree, is only 12 units. And then we have certificates in a specialized area, like estate planning, international tax, state and local tax. But I want to first focus on the MS taxation degree, right? That's 30 units. Most of our courses right now are 3 units. So think of 10 classes, 3 units each. So of those 10 classes, 7 classes are required. So 21 of the 30 units are required classes, and then 3 classes which are electives. Let me go through the required classes relatively quickly. The first class is on foundational skills. I argue the most important class of our program is tax research. If you didn't know, if you stack up all the Harry Potter books, they don't come close to the size of the Internal Revenue Code. This is just one volume of the Internal Revenue Code. Oh, you can't see it because of my, there you go. One volume of the Internal Revenue. There's 2 volumes of the Internal Revenue Code. In addition to that, there's about 6 or 7 volumes of the regulations which interpret the code. There are revenue rulings and there are revenue procedures. And there's a ton of case law. No human being can possibly know even a small fraction of everything that's in there. So what does it separate someone who's really a great tax advisor from someone who is average or below average? Is someone who can effectively and efficiently research all that information to get answers, correct tax answers. That's what tax research is all about. That's the first part of tax research. And the second part, we teach you how to document that. It's fine to come up with the answer. How do you document that? either because it's a letter to the file, a letter to the client, or a letter to the IRS. So that's a really valuable class. It also is a great foundational class, which will help you in the future classes in the program. The other foundational skills class is TA318, Individual Taxation. I teach that course, so I'm biased. I think it's a great course. I'm also the lead instructor to that course. I'll tell you, when I agreed 3 years ago to be the lead instructor of the course, I didn't know what I was going to get involved with. Why? Because right after I got involved, we had the Tax Cut and Jobs Act written in the law, which changed half of the materials. In the middle of this semester, I had to revise the material because of the CARES Act that came out of the coronavirus. There was a number of provisions that affected individuals. So besides making sure that you always get the latest and greatest information out of your courses, is specifically with individuals, you learn how to take a fact pattern relation to individuals and be able to apply the law in order to determine the correct answer. So that's what that class is all about. Then you go into the operating classes, characterization. Is it ordinary income? Is it capital gain? How is it taxed, depending on which? Timing, when is it taxed? Is it taxed this year or next year? When do you get a deduction, this year or next year? A ton of planning. I personally believe that the tax timing class is the class that you use more than any other class in the program. I know some instructors agree with me, some disagree, but there's a lot of planning and tax planning involved when you know the timing issues. And then procedures. You can't advocate for clients without understanding tax procedures. What are the rules? What are the rights that the taxpayers have if they're being audited by the Internal Revenue Service? What can they ask for? What can't they ask for? What if you disagree with the findings by an audit? What are your paths to remedy? And so it's a good course. It's a course that we offer normally in over 15 weeks in our regular semester, but we also offer it in an accelerated format on Saturdays in January and very early February. So people who have a very busy spring busy season really like that class because they can knock out a class in like 5 weeks. Then you do a deep dive in corporations and partnerships. So that breadth of knowledge along with the electives, and students come to me and say, you know, what electives should I take? And I always say, well, it depends on what area either are you practicing in or that you are interested in practicing in. I worked in a large corporate taxation, right? These are companies that are doing business across state lines. So state and local tax class was really helpful to me. I also took a really good international tax class. It's called the Principles of International Tax. It's a beginning international tax class that talks about inbound and outbound. Inbound for foreign entities doing business here in the US, and outbound US persons or entities doing business abroad. After you take that class, if you want more international tax, there's a deep dive section only on inbound and only on outbound. If you work on individuals and that's what your passion is, then estate planning is going to be helpful. There are other electives which aren't specifically dealing with a certificate that I think are really popular. There's a choice of entity class. So you really get to know what's the difference between setting it up for an LLC versus a S Corp versus a sole proprietorship. Another one of my classes that I really like, if you are going to be dealing with large corporations, is FAS 109, which is the Accounting for Income Tax course. So usually the complaint I get from students is like, I only have 3 electives and I don't know which one. There's a number of these classes I want to take and I only can do 3. All right, let me talk a little briefly about the format of how we deliver classes. There's really 3 forms of which that we deliver classes. There's what I would call asynchronous online. What that means is there's no set date and time in which you meet. There's no campus requirement. You can take it from Seattle wherever you live, even if you're in the Bay Area, you don't want to travel into San Francisco or San Francisco campus to take a class. Or I've had some students who they live in San Francisco. It would be easy for them to go to campus, but because of their job, they travel a lot. So they can't commit to physically being in class at a set day and time each week. So online works really well for them. The other option, obviously, is in person, physically on our San Francisco campus. Now, full disclosure, we are moving all of our in-person classes into web conference for the summer semester because of the coronavirus. The building is actually closed, but we expect, you know, I don't think anybody can predict the future, but we would expect that we would resume in-person classes in the fall. So what's this web conference? What's neat is we were already doing web conference on a more limited basis before the coronavirus. So we were able to pivot to it pretty easier, let's say, than I know a lot of institutions were doing it. So, so we use the web conference. We meet at a specific date and time, just like an in-person class, a specific date and time, and you zoom in just like you zoomed in for this webinar, and you incur 2 hours and 40 minutes of live class. There may be a lecture component. There's my class is a lot of classroom discussions as we go through the material. The thing, let me just comment that these three options, you can change from semester to semester. In other words, you can take a web conference this semester and go, you know what, in the fall, I want to travel to San Francisco and take an in-person class. And then in the spring, you could say, you know what, I'm traveling a lot for business. It works better for me to take an online class. So you can pivot from each format from semester to semester. I want to give you a little picture of what it looks like. You guys kind of know what it's like because you're kind of experiencing it now. So it starts kind of like with the Zoom. Sometimes I'm not sharing my screen and I have a discussion. Zoom has an ability to like click a button to raise your hand. So when I'm in this format, I can see, you know, quickly if a student wants to ask me a question. When I'm sharing my screen, it's a little harder. So I usually tell people, you know, you can interrupt me. That's fine. There's an ability to do poll questions of your audience. What's interesting, because I've taught via web conferencing and in person for many years, I think the amount of my interaction in web conferences is about as much, if not more, than in my in-person class. People are pretty comfortable speaking up. Again, why? Because I mean, the class I'm teaching this semester has like 13 students. So it's not like you're in a class with 100 students. You know, Zoom allows you to annotate. So as I'm doing right now, I can circle. This is usually where the little hand will go up. I can annotate as I'm instructing. You can look here. This slide, I'm sharing slides here, and I can annotate and write on it. Students can as well. I didn't tell my students at the beginning, and once they figured out, they went crazy. And I said, calm down now that you have the power to write on my slides, so don't go too crazy. But it's really neat. I was wondering whether I would like teaching web conference as much as I like teaching the in-person format, and I do. So again, love to answer any questions that you might have on web conferencing. If you do, please note them so you don't forget to ask at the end. What's an online class? Remember, online is called asynchronous. There's no set date and time in which you have to log in, but make no mistake, you do have to be very active in your class throughout the week. What I tell students is, if you were in a in-person or web conference class, you'd attend class for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Well, call that 2.5 hours. I say you should be in your class for 2.5 hours, spread across the week. So maybe 30 minutes for 5 days of the week, participating in the discussion forums. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. So this is kind of a sample week of my asynchronous online class that I've taught in the spring. So I start by posting at the beginning. Think of each week as its own week, and then it replicates itself each week with new materials. So in a particular week, opens on Sunday. I've actually opened it on Saturday to allow students extra time to the extent they want to utilize their Saturday to study the next material. So I live out the learning objectives and the assignment. Like what's the readings for the week and what are the problem sets for the week. Also, I release my narrated PowerPoint review. So the same lecture that I would give in an in-person or web conference class, I record it over narrated PowerPoints. Now it's not as long, it's not like 2 hours. I usually keep it less than a half hour because I'm able to just go through it quickly and I'm not being interrupted by any questions. And the value of that is students can not only listen to it, but they can re-listen to it. Rewind, hear it again if they need to hear it again. And I personally use, not all our instructors, but I use a program called Panopto. And what's neat about that is that has a transcript, so you can actually read the words that I am saying in addition to listening and hearing and seeing a video of myself and the PowerPoint slides. There may be some supplementary videos, which there was in this week. And then once you've gotten the problem set, starting Sunday in my class, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have the discussion forums open where I post a problem set, and the idea is for you as a student to go in there and our case study and give your answer or your analysis of what you think is correct. And a discussion is exactly that, a discussion, a back and forth that happens throughout the week. Another student may come in and have a different answer, or the instructor will come in and go, you know what, you're on the right track, but consider this. What does everyone else think? Or keeps the discussion going on through the week. I give my students a hard time if they like log in on Wednesday and that's all they participate 1 day a week. I go, no, you're not gonna get good class participation. The idea is for you to participate throughout the entire week. At the end of the week, I release the problem solutions so they know what the clear final answer was. And then we have a test your knowledge quiz, which is a small part of your overall grade, and then it replicates itself. Some classes are a little different, but I think this is pretty standard. I made a big statement. I said that you know, coming to GGU will help you in your career. And I said that acronym of career. Well, it helps you beyond just what technical knowledge in your classes are a big part of it, no question. But the other thing is we do a bunch of professional events. All these events are included in your tuition. There's no additional cost. And with respect to the Lunch and Learn workshops and the speaker series, those two sessions are either recorded so you can watch them later, or they actually, you can zoom in and attend remotely. And what do we do in these sessions? In the speaker series, you're gonna learn from different leaders and different people about either tax technical topic or leadership skills, where the Lunch and Learns are targeted a little bit part recruiting from them, part giving you great knowledge. It could be about the recruiting process, like we do workshops on how to write resumes and cover letters and interview skills and networking skills, which I think are valuable even if you have a job, because odds are in the career of tax, you're not going to stay at the same place the entire time of your career. So getting those good recruiting skills, I think are very valuable. But we also talk about technology skills, Excel workshop of the key Excel skills, and not just general Excel skills. The Excel skills you need to know in the world of taxation. And we have an external firm that comes in and talks about that. And there's some technical workshops as well. Rocco, you want to briefly talk about the other events?
Yeah, thank you. So we do a lot of recruitment events. on campus and just informational type events that Eric kind of was giving you an overview on. But two of the larger events that we do every fall happen to land on the same day. So if you're coming from another part of the country or another part of California and you want to attend these events, they're on the same day. And so it's a great way to kind of knock off two networking events in one shot. The first one is the Practice Business Luncheon. And this is a networking luncheon that we've designed with our employer partners. And so at each table of the luncheon, you are engaging with equal number of students and employers. So it gives you an opportunity how to network and interview and talk about different things and kind of hopefully engage with an employer that would want to invite you for an interview at a later date. It's also really kind of a dynamic because you're doing it over lunch. And so it's kind of skill-based. Are you skilled in being able to network without spitting food out at somebody next to you? Because it is real food that we're serving you. So it's a great event. And in this field, and some of you have already said that you are in the profession. So in this field, it's often very common, rather, that you will have a lunch or dinner, perhaps over an interview or over a client meeting. So this is a great way to start figuring out how all that works. On that same day, as I mentioned earlier, that afternoon, right after the networking luncheon, the Practice Business Luncheon, we have the recruitment event, which is our annual career fair. Now we do recruitment events all year round, but this one is the large one. And so we have about 30 plus employers who come and recruit. Now, one of the questions we often get is, well, are they recruiting just for people in the Bay Area? Yes and no. They're recruiting for people who have talent, and they have offices. Most of our firms that we work with have offices all around the country and even the world. So you might have an opportunity to find a spot in the Seattle market, if that's what you're looking for, or in Southern California, or if you're calling in from another part of the country, they have offices all around the US. So you have networking opportunities that really kind of fit your needs. And so these are two of the more important recruitment events that we do every year. And Eric, did you ever talk about what it really costs students to attend these events and participate?
Absolutely nothing beyond what in other words, it's included in your tuition. So.
Yeah, there's nothing. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. And because we don't really know what the world is going to bring us with the coronavirus and when we'll be released from shelter in place, we're also looking at different ways of delivering these things. So some of the workshops that Eric talked about can be accessed through like this format, or some of them are also recorded so you can go back and look at them and watch them later.
Kind of the theory of all these professional events is to help you find employment, and then once you have the employment, be successful. And I think Rocco made such a big point that this is a people business. So learning some of these networking skills isn't about just getting you a job. It's making you successful when you're on the job. Real quickly about the support services. We have a lot of support services here. You just need to make sure that you take advantage of them to the extent that you need them. Again, all these support services are included in your tuition, or another way to say it, are free. You're assigned a graduate advisor. You should never, ever, ever have a question of, gee, what class should I take next? Or how many classes should I take this particular semester? When I say you should never have that question, you should never have that question and not know who to go with, who to ask, because you would just ask your advisor those type of questions. On behalf of all the faculty here, both full-time and adjunct, the professors are here for you. I have office hours. I meet with students even outside of office hours who are struggling the material and need additional help. That said, even beyond the help of your professors, we have both tax and accounting tutors. These are alumni. These are people who have graduated from, have their master's in tax, and you can reach them by Zoom. So they have office hours and you can Zoom in to the extent that you have questions about your classes and you need additional help. We have a real robust Office of Career Planning. I think they changed their name, Rocco. I can't remember their new name. I heard it once, but it's the same group and they're great. They have a lot of human resources. So you have issues about careers and help to finding jobs. You can get a live appointment with someone to learn about all their resources, to do mock interviews, to review your resume or review your cover letter. And they have a huge reservoir of incredible tools. I just happen to pick 8 just to give you a small sample of some of the things. They have a little recorded session so you can access it anytime, about creating an elevator speech, about how to expand your professional network, cover letter construction, behavioral interviews, which are more and more common now, resume basics, how to prepare for the career fair and get the most out of the career fair. So those are the type of things that are there. I talked a lot about how valuable it is to network with your classmates. Some of that happens in the class because it's a small class environment, but also that there's a tax and accounting club, and they have different events. And again, it gives you a great opportunity to meet more folks. Same thing with VITA, which is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, which I am a big fan of. I'm also a fan of TaxAid. All these programs is a volunteer. Tax professionals or people who are in the tax world volunteer their time to help those who are at a lower income properly file their tax return, often because of different credits and things, get refunds. I've done it before, and it is really rewarding to see how excited they are when you tell them, okay, you got a $2,000 refund, because $2,000 to them means a lot. And we have a financial aid department that can help you with any financial aid questions. All right, I am gonna turn the microphone over to Cindy to pick it up with the admissions requirements.
Well, I've switched laptops, so hopefully this microphone's working. I'll just briefly review the admissions and application requirements for the program. I know several of you are in different phases. Some of you have already applied, and others of you are in various areas of submission. But first and foremost, we do look at your academic history. We like to see a minimum cumulative GPA in your undergraduate degree of a 3.0 or higher. Now, does that mean we won't consider you if you don't have a 3.0? Of course not. We will look at you and look at your application regardless, and we'll just ask for additional documentation, which I'll address here in a moment. So in addition to submitting the application, we do ask you to submit your official transcript from your degree conferring institutions, both undergraduate and postgraduate. By official, we mean that it needs to be transmitted from your former institution to us directly. Now that said, of course, coronavirus has made us have to be adaptable in various ways. We're having, slower mail delivery service and so forth. So at least for the summer and fall in the meantime, we are asking you to still order or request your official transcripts be transmitted to us, but we will temporarily accept unofficial transcripts, which would make you eligible for provisional admission, meaning we would give you some additional time to get that official transcript in. We do not require a GMAT or a GRE. And then I do recommend that students submit a resume because it's nice to be able to give us some context and background about who you are as an individual. Now, if your GPA is below a 3.0, in addition to the application and your transcripts, we ask you to provide us with a statement of purpose that will address what the circumstances were that may have contributed to your lower GPA, an explanation of why you are ready to come back to school now and what changes you've made or how you intend to be successful in completing your degree in our program. Additionally, we do ask you to also submit a resume, and in that instance, it is required. If you're an international student, again, you know, same requirements, but we do have an English language proficiency, which I'll address here in a minute. So we'll need either a TOEFL or an IELTS unless you otherwise waive out of or exempt from having to take those English language proficiency exams. Next slide. There we go. So if your native language or your first language is not English, as I just mentioned, we do require the IELTS or TOEFL. There are ways to waive out of it, and those include attendance at an English speaking school in an English speaking country, or if you've worked for you know, an English speaking company, you know, or in an English speaking country as well. And then, you know, there are other circumstances that may enable you to waive out of that English language requirement or having to take TOEFL and IELTS. I just encourage applicants to talk to me about that, or students to talk to me about that, to see if you know, if you meet those waiver and proficiency requirements. We also have a graduate writing requirement, again, satisfied in the same way, attendance at an English-speaking institution in an English-speaking country would satisfy that requirement as well. And in either event, if you don't satisfy the requirement, we do have a class that you can take that would enable you to satisfy both the English language requirement and the graduate writing proficiency requirement. I will briefly address the cohort, and Rocco, you might want to chime in with this one. Cohort is our accelerated full-time day program. It's going to begin in July. We're hoping to be on campus and have the campus opened up by then, but we'll have a mandatory orientation July 23rd and 24th, and classes will start on the 27th of July. It's an accelerated program, and Rocco, do you want to briefly describe that?
Yeah, so thank you. So it is a 9-month program, and it is the same program that Eric just walked you through. Same courses, it's just, you know, consolidated into 9 weeks for each of the first 2 terms. So as you can see, in term 1 and in term 2, you're taking 3 courses or 9 units. It is primarily an in-person program, but we are opening it up to web conferencing so that students who physically can't be in the space, assuming that we can occupy the campus at that point in time, they could attend this whole entire program through web conferencing. So the first two terms are 9 weeks. And you'll notice that we have a data analytics for accounting and tax and accounting course in there too. So this is a newly formed course that's just rolling out. And we're really excited because it's developed by a graduate of the MST program. And he's also CPA, as well as has worked in the Big Four using analytics. So he's going to be a great provider and instructor for this course, because analytics is really an important piece of the field. It's becoming much more involved in tax. So we want to make sure you have that skill set. And then term 3 is a 15-week traditional term. This is where students will do their internships, if you're going to do an internship, or take other elective courses. TA 319 is the procedures class. It's offered over 5 Saturdays. And then one of Eric's classes, TA 338, isn't that one of the courses you teach, Eric?
I am the 338 cohort instructor.
You are coming, okay. Yeah, that's right, we just moved it, sorry. Had a brain fart.
And I'll
but
just
yes,
add,
it's a great program.
I'll just add as well, so that program, I mean, hopefully we'll have the on-site option. Either way, we also now are expanding it to a web conference option. And if you are really interested in it, we do have webinar coming up on April 30th from noon to 1 Pacific time, and I'm happy to send you the link if you'll let me know that you're interested in attending it. So after all of this, how do you pay for your degree? There are various options and avenues available to you. Our graduate programs do qualify for federal financial aid. We have a great financial aid office that will work with you. You start by filling out the FAFSA form and a form for us, and then we'll work with you on disbursement. If you do go that route, you are required to take a minimum of 4 credits, and since our classes are 3 credits each, that would mean that you'd have to take a minimum of 2 classes. We are a participant in the Yellow Ribbon program. So if you're military and are going to use your GI benefits, that may result in 0 out-of-pocket costs for you. We have, again, a department that can work with you in getting that started as well. We also have scholarship and grant opportunities that are both need and merit-based. And I can send you additional information about that, or it can be found on our website, which is located on the slide that you'll have a copy of. Our tuition for each credit is $1,250. Again, our classes are typically 3 units, so that's $3,750 per class. It's a 30-unit program. Look at me, I'm teaching math. So at 30 units, the entire program is $37,500, and that tuition is going to stay at that rate, at least for this upcoming academic year. And in addition to that, we do have a couple of incidental fees each term, an $85 tech fee. You will find that in most of your classes, the textbooks and materials will be provided to you online. There are very few classes at this point that really have textbooks that you have to order. So your code, your regs will all be provided to you. We give you access to CCH and RIA Checkpoint, so you'll be able to access most of the materials without having to expend additional costs on textbooks. Our typical application fee is $65. For those of you who have not already paid it, we are waiving that fee when you submit your application in light of the coronavirus situation, as well as to thank you for your attendance at the seminar today. Our applications are accepted on a rolling basis. We do have 3 terms: a fall term, which starts in September, a spring term that starts in January, and a summer term that starts here in May. Our priority deadline is about 2 weeks prior to the start of the term. So there is still time to apply for our summer term. It will begin on May 10th, and then our fall term will start September 6th. I always like to encourage students to apply sooner than later. Our registration will open up, several months before the term starts. So if you want to make sure that you get into the class that you really want, it's nice to already be admitted and have the opportunity to register early to make sure you get that class. Additionally, if you are an international student, or if you need to take any sort of placement exams, you want to make sure you have those completed prior to the start of the term.
All right. So usually what happens when I attend a session like this, they ask me what questions I have, and I say I don't have any, and then right when the session's over, I have questions. Cindy Goldberg probably would be your best contact. Is that fair, Cindy?
That's fair.
If you don't have her email, I think most of you do, but if you don't, it's cgoldberg@ggu.edu. So I am going to stop sharing. It is 12:50. So what I would like to do is open it up for questions. There are two ways in which you can ask questions so we don't talk for each other. If you go to manage participants and or just participants on your screen, I believe, you should have an option to raise your hand. We can recognize you. You can unmute and ask your question. Or if you want to just use the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen, go ahead and just type in your question that you have, and we would be happy to answer it. Rocco or Cindy, anything before we start taking questions?
No, we'll field the questions, and please just ask questions no matter how silly you may think it is. Others might have the same question, and we'll go ahead and read them out loud if you chat them so that people can hear your question and then hear our responses.
Okay, Ronald has his hand up. So Ronald, unmute and go ahead.
Hi there. Well, my question, sorry if I missed it in the earlier presentation, but I'm really interested in the cohort because I would like to finish it the shortest period of time, which is 9 months. However, I would love to start this coming May. Would that be possible to do it at my own pace as well? If I decide to go, start in May and just finish it in 9 months?
So I think that deserves a one-off conversation because it doesn't necessarily align that well. And so I think we really need to kind of figure out what that means. Okay. Because of the types of courses you're going to need to take and the sequencing of them. So we can have that one-off conversation. If you want to have Cindy kind of coordinate a meeting with all of us, we can do that. Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine a scenario where you're just doing your own pace and your own thing 3 times a night, but you lose the ability of being with the same group of people, which is what I value of the cohort program is.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you finish sooner than the 9 months because the way the other courses are sequenced. So it may not be a good idea, but we'll talk about it.
Thank you.
Sophie, can you clarify your question? He says, how does the exam work? What exam are you referring to? Are you talking like exam?
I'm talking about the semester end exam because I saw in both in online or web conference, at the end of the class you have exam, but normally I take like actual class. We have like a group of people go to exam class and take the exam. But how this like online classes exam would be?
Most classes have a written exam that's proctored, and we have in the past used a company called ProctorU. The point is you take it from home or any quiet location. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning of the semester, your instructors should, in their syllabus, exactly outline how their exams will be structured. But the big thing you need to know, if you're taking a web conference or taking it asynchronous online, you will be able to take the exam from home.
I see.
It can be done from your workplace or home.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not so scary because actually students, in my experience that I've spoken to, prefer it because it gives them a little bit more focused time. As long as you can, make time away from any distractions. And it also, doesn't mean that you have to travel to San Francisco. Like I think you said you were in Santa Clara. So that's quite a bit of a distance and time to do that, each week. So this provides you, this web conferencing format gives you a similar experience, so that in-person synchronous experience, except you don't have to leave, work or home.
I see.
I see Joe has his hand up. Feel free to unmute and let us know your question, Joe. You're still muted, so I can't hear. Okay, there you go.
Hi, can you hear me now? Or
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, how like there's like the certificate program where it shows like the international and domestic. So if I'm doing like the 30 unit, like the that program, can I still take additional classes so that like I can learn both about international and domestic then? So, or are you only allowed to take like 30 units for the program?
So the program is 30 units. There's no, so everybody takes the same course. If I understood your question correctly, you can, when you get down to your electives, take a course in international. But whether you're an international student or a domestic student, the program is the same program. We don't.
No. I'm not talking. No. Sorry. It's you know, like there's for like about the international tax and the domestic tax.
So you can take elective courses in international tax. The required courses that Eric outlined are required, and they cover domestic tax concepts. In your electives, you get 3 courses or 9 units, and you can take international tax. You can take there's 3 different courses. Well, there's more than 3 different courses, but there's a principles class that you have to take first. And then you can take the other 2 electives in the international tax course options as well. So you can do that. Oh, and then later, if you want, you can also complete a certificate in international taxation, which has, I think it's 5 courses in that certificate. So if you did 3 in your master's degree, then you'd only have to do 2 more in the certificate and earn a certificate on top of your master's degree.
Perfect. That answers my question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I just was going to say, just to clarify, so the certificate is more of an area of specialization of knowledge, and the general Masters of Science in Taxation program, that's a formal degree, not simply a certificate. So if you want more specialized knowledge, you would be adding the certificate to that.
Yeah.
And I can attest as someone who is a student here who took the Principles International class. I thought that was a great class. That was enough for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't an international tax expert, but I wanted to be enough to know I didn't get myself in trouble and I knew when to ask for help. So that was enough. Now, if I was going to be an international tax expert and that's all I did was consult on international taxation, I would want to take more classes than just the principles course. Or for someone that wasn't what I was doing, which is most of our students, at least initially, the principles class is sufficient, in my opinion.
And one other thing I'd like to just add on about elective courses, there's a lot of different areas of elective courses that you can choose from. International tax is one of them. But we're always bringing on new courses of interest. And so there are 2 courses that we just recently added, and they are focusing on analytics and innovative technologies in the profession of tax. So those are courses that you might be interested in taking to kind of get an understanding and a practical knowledge around how are analytics being used in tax, and what does this mean for you? So you're going to see more courses along those lines that are being developed by professionals who are doing analytics in the tax field. Claire, I think, might have had her hand up. I'm not positive.
Yes, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So I am a CPA and I have a master's in tax already from another university. So I'm interested in the certificate program for international tax.
Perfect.
So can you tell me how the application works and the time it takes just to get the certificate?
The certificate, I'll let Cindy address the applications piece, but you go online, you apply for it, and you'll see all of the things that you need to do for that. It should be pretty straightforward. As far as the time it takes, the principles class is offered, it's 5 classes, I believe, and the principles class is offered every term, and then we rotate the elective options that you would be able to take. So it depends on which ones you want to take and when they're offered. It could take a year, it could take a little less. It really depends on which courses are being offered in which term. But the principles class we typically offer like every term.
Okay.
And the application process is virtually the same thing. So you would still go into, apply now, and you're going to still click on graduate programs, and you'll find you don't want to go into professional certificates. That's something totally different. So you still want to go into the graduate program, submit your application. and your transcripts, and that's all you really need.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. I will clarify though too, by the way, there are 2 prerequisites before starting the program. But if you have ways of satisfying them, you know, we can always address that with the program director or the dean. But you still have to meet the requirement for the tax research class and advanced federal income tax. It's really that research class that's the real critical one, just so you don't start off with some sort of disadvantage you know, on the research side of it.
Okay, so it's possibly a prerequisite to take the research class, depending on.
Yeah, I mean, it's listed. If you go to register for that first class, it's listed. So, but that class is really worth it. I mean, there are firms who send students to us for that class. You know, a lot depends on your, you know, your level of experience. That's why the resume is also really important.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Ronald, I don't know if you had another question or your hand was still up from the previous time. I'm going to lower your hand. Let us know.
Sorry about that.
You don't? No problem. I lowered it. Sophie, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. I do have another follow-up question for the. I know that the class for master degree have 30 units. What if I finish 30 units already and I want to take another class? Do I still pay for the extra 3 units for that? Like how is the tuition will work?
So here's my recommendation. If you want to take more classes than are required within the degree, what you could do is finish your degree, graduate from that degree, right? So they would confirm that you've completed it. And then if you take other classes, whether you do a certificate or you just do another class, you might be eligible for, and Cindy, I can't remember the details, but you might be eligible for an alumni discount. Is that true?
You know, I have to clarify that. I'll have to certificate. It might be a little different than with.
Oh, it might be okay. But either way, it depends. You know, if you are, go ahead.
I was going to say there's certainly discounted tuition for you know, when you're taking a class and it's not for credit or towards a degree or certificate.
Right. Yeah. If it's just a one-off. If you are, so if you want to do additional and you have, like, say, if you're using financial aid or other like federal government benefits, VA or something like that, there might be rules around whether or not you can do that. So it's not a straightforward response, unfortunately, because it has a lot of variables.
Cindy, isn't there also an option to audit that?
Yes. Cindy mentioned that.
That's the reduced tuition.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Eric and Cindy, I have to drop off. I have another meeting I'm supposed to be on, so I apologize. But if there's any questions that I need to help answer, I'm happy to do that via email. It was great seeing everybody here, and good luck, and we hope to see you somewhere else. And have a great weekend.
Bye, Rocco.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Again, you can use the chat. You can just go ahead and unmute your mic and start talking. It's fine, since it looks like we don't have a lot of questions at once here.
I'm sure Cindy is going to get lots of emails and phone calls before the end of the day.
I tell people all the time, I have the best job in the world because I get to talk to people who enjoy tax as much as I do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all the hard work. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad you could join us. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Have a good weekend, guys. I'm logging off. Bye now.
You as well.
Bye-bye. Stay healthy.
You too.
I'll make my final comment in case another email comes up, and then I'll head out. My final comment is I wish you guys all well in your journey. Hope one day to see you in a class. The takeaway I have that I think about Golden Gate is that it's, some student told me once, it's kind of like a family atmosphere. And I said that before when Rocco's been on the line, and he says, yeah, Eric's like my brother. And I say, my very older brother. and we go back and forth. But it feels that way because it's very easy to get time with the dean, get time with your professor, and so forth. So that's the last thing I need to say. Cindy, any last comments?
Nope, that's it. I just was responding to just a quick inquiry. So,
Okay. And I know that there are a few people, Brian, Duke, Aditola, that we didn't get to meet because we got going right at 12:01. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to look before I log out for another minute to see if anything pops up in the chat or if anyone wants to unmute and ask a question.